Oh, I'm not gonna get that intro right. Anyway, welcome to the pilot episode of the Spur of the Moment podcast. I am your host, Justin Spurr, and as with me is my co-host, the incomparable Jordan. Say hello, Jordan.
Hello, Jordan.
And this is pre-recorded, but usually we're gonna try to do this live, and we're just gonna let what happened may what happens happen like that. Um, and we're gonna have segments, and there's gonna be kind of a structure to it, but it is gonna sort of play loosey goosey. We've already this is now take two, but we're gonna this is gonna be pre-recorded, and you'll see how it works as we go on. Anyway, so Jordan, I'm for your benefit, I'm gonna pick a different topic to start with this time since we already talked about GTA. Let's just see
Fair,
here.
fair.
I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, here we go.
Nope.
So, um, they've apparently are making a Donald Trump biopic finally, and my thing is,
Really.
and the ironic part of it, with a funny part for me, I'm gonna swap back over to us. The funny part about it for me ironically, is one of the I think the woman playing his wife was the girl from Borat who who had that moment with
Oh, the one who ended up with Rudy
yeah
Giuliani.
yeah yeah
Oh my
she was
God.
playing his wife, which I think is the
Oh,
6 degrees of weird separation. But my thing is though, why is it taking so long? Like, why is it taking so long for them to finally do it? Are they just waiting for him to
I
like?
mean, because he just keeps giving them more gold to
Yeah,
shoot.
they
You
just keep
know,
waiting
like
for an ending that's never gonna come.
yeah. I mean, they've got enough there. They could make like two
That's
movies.
true. They could make a movie. They could make a
Like they
movie.
could.
There's like a trilogy there. There's his early life, him on The
Yeah.
Apprentice, and then there's him as president, which is its own
Him
thing.
now him leading up to being president, and
Yeah,
then him being president
yeah,
up until the point of his untimely fall into the state that he's currently at.
yeah. Exactly. There's a whole trajectory that they could do. I just
And,
say,
and then and then the last one is about how he's a down on his luck politician who is trying to get back into it. You know, like Rocky,
yeah,
like once he's past his prime
past
and
his
he's trying
prime.
to still do that thing.
Yeah, and it's okay. So we have Maria Baklova, as well as apparently Sebastian Stan is going to be playing is going to be playing Trump. Sebastian Stan by name. He's Bucky. Bucky from
Okay,
yeah.
that's weird.
Well, I mean
I
he
see him more. I see him more as Donald Trump's idiot son than I do as Donald Trump.
yeah. Well, I mean he's not the first time he's transformed for a role. Yeah, I don't quite see him as
Um,
Donald Trump. No.
I see him as oh, the one that's married to Ivanka.
Jared Kushner.
I
Jared,
think
yeah.
that's who.
Jared, yeah, I could see Jared, yeah. I don't, yeah, definitely, but I mean, hey, the correct amount of caked on
I
makeup
mean,
thing.
he's just got to have orange hair.
Everyone's got an impression, so I mean,
Everyone has an
no, stop,
impression.
stop, stop,
Some
stop,
some of
stop
them
it,
are just
stop this
not.
right now. We're not doing this. But yeah, so yeah, that's apparently coming, and apparently, I just can't again, I cannot believe it's the first one. Like that's what's crazy to me. Like you'd think this would be
Yeah,
like the third or fourth one by this point.
the fact that it's taken so long is kind of astonishing.
Right? Right? Okay,
But
so moving on, moving right along here. Um,
moving right along.
oh yeah, so apparently Zack Snyder, he said he would consider returning to DC to do an adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns. To which I would say, what's the fucking
Haven't
point?
haven't we done enough Batman stuff?
Where it's just The Dark Knight Returns? Like
Yeah, like
they've done it. They've done his Batman is practically The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, it's the
I
same
mean,
costume.
if Zack Snyder's gonna do anything, he should not.
Yeah, I mean, no, he should
That's what I
not.
would say.
Yeah, he should
He should
not.
just leave well enough alone and just not.
I just don't think his. Let him go do knockoff Star Wars, AI generated Star Wars. Like, can we talk about
I mean, if
how that
yeah, you
trailer just looked
know,
like it was AI generated?
it certainly didn't do it for me necessarily, but
Like to me, it looked like you
there's
just
that.
put a bunch of Star Wars like names and like ideas into like chat GPT, and then it spat out that. That's what it looks
Le-
like.
it's legally distinct but not
It's just
dissimilar to Star
exactly,
Wars.
exactly. Yeah, it's legally distinct, but not dissimilar to Star Wars. What? No, no, they're not. They're not lightsabers, Jordan. They're laser swords.
They're laser beams,
Lasers,
laser.
laser beam swords. They're not. They're not.
Yeah,
They're not.
they're not
They're not
lightsabers per se.
lightsabers per se.
Per
They're,
se,
they're
I
per se,
said per
per
se.
se, per se, per se.
All right, like
But like, why? Like, why did he not earn enough? Was he, I guess he's just a glutton for punishment. He's like, more DC, please.
huh, apparently he just doesn't know when to walk away.
Right? Right? Okay.
Just
So,
you just gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
right? So yeah, so okay, apparently they've and we didn't talk about this in off air, but they've apparently announced who the new bad guy for Godzilla, the next Godzilla movie is going to be. And I've actually been sitting on like I want to see a trailer first before I render judgment. But it's
The
yeah,
American
The
Godzilla.
next American Godzilla, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Who?
It's a new bad guy apparently, and
Oh,
it's a Scar King is what it's called, and it's another big monkey. So it's like Godzilla and King Kong have to team up to fight another big monkey. And I'm like, well, on the one hand, yeah, it's kind of neat to see them team up to fight an evil King Kong. That's kind of neat. But on the other hand, apparently there's some sort of ice monster or Titan as well. But I'm disappointed because I had heard rumors it was going to be Space Godzilla, and I've never seen Space Godzilla, and I that's on my like list of ones to watch. And I would love to see a big budget version of Space Godzilla because I just love Space
yeah.
Godzilla.
My thing is okay. Giant ape feels lazy.
Yeah, well, it's apparently
Like
he's
if
an
you're
orangutan as opposed to a gorilla.
okay, it's still shades of the same
That's what
species.
I think. Yeah.
If you're gonna create your own one, like make like a gigantic alligator or like a gigantic shark or
Well, I mean,
like
Godzilla's got
something
like he's got a pantheon of bad guys that they could utilize. Like he's got tons that they haven't done yet. I mean,
to just do an evil version of King Kong. Just I don't know, just
I have to see it in a trailer first before.
mm,
That's why
yeah,
I haven't really touched or made or talked about it because I'm like I just I just don't I in concept I
but
don't
just
love it, but execution is
yeah,
everything.
exactly,
And to be fair,
exactly.
I love there's sometimes I love things in execution and I don't love or in concept I don't love them in execution. Like in the King of Monsters or no King Kong versus Godzilla, I love King Kong. I love the fact that Metal Godzilla is there. I don't like how he looks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I can understand that. As for Alien Godzilla,
Space
um,
Godzilla.
my Space Godzilla. I'm sorry. My only really reference for him that I remember is we had a video game. I
Hmm.
think it was on PlayStation 2
Yes, we did.
where you battled as the various monsters, and he was one of the ones
Yes, he
you
was
could play as
chunky
in that.
Godzilla, and he had diamond
He
spikes.
had he had mountains on his back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna watch.
I love that. I love that
That
game.
game's really fun. I have intentions of watching it. Um, yeah, and
It's on the list.
it's on the list. I'm gonna finish them. But yeah, overall, yeah. How you feeling about Scar King, Jordan?
Ah, um, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
How are you
yeah.
feeling about?
It's probably. I mean, we may talk about it once we see a trailer. I think we'll talk about it again. Because yeah, I need to
um,
see it. I need to see it before I can really.
it's hard to have an opinion. Conceptually, I don't know that I love it,
Yeah, I'm the same.
but I need. You're absolutely right. I need to see execution. I need to see because like a, a good trailer can completely change my mind. A bad trailer can also completely change my
Exactly.
mind.
Exactly. I'm the same as you.
It's I'd like to see something that's not just evil King Kong.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
you know, there's so many animals, so many. A giant praying mantis would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Have them to
I mean, there's
like
previous
like
versions of Godzilla where he just fights a big spider. He's just fighting a big
yeah,
spider.
Like there's so many other animals that are out there that I think that you could do if you're going to do a fresh new character.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
so many animals that you could do, and to just do again, I realize it's a different kind of giant
Yeah.
ape monkey thing, but
Supposedly, the concept is supposed to be that him and King Kong's his ancestors and King Kong's ancestors were like fought, and basically he's like their nemesis or whatever. That's it. So he's like the
yeah,
ancient enemy or something.
I don't know. I
It's
don't
clearly
know,
because
man.
apparently from the
Like to
artwork.
me, like sorry, I was just gonna say, to me, what they should do, if it's gonna be about being ancient enemies, you have it where they're three different distinct species that were combating for the planet. So
Yes.
you have King Kong, who's the mammal, who is the mammal like
Yeah.
superior, best version of mammals. You have Godzilla, who's the reptile, who is like the apex of the reptiles. So you pick an insect, who is the apex of all the insects.
Yeah.
And
I
they were
again
all at wars with each other.
supposedly there's another one that's like an ice monster or something, but I again I don't know. Um I was gonna say about Scar King. Nope, it's gone. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next item here. Let's see
All
here. What we
right.
got? I think that was it for me. Oh, here's one. Okay. They oh shit. um, they announced that the head writer of Loki, um, he is apparently taking over as the writer of Avengers: Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty, which, in my opinion, is a very good thing because it means that maybe the rules will have some consistency from now on.
Continuity.
Yeah, well, not even just continuity, because obviously this all has an air of continuity, but more just the rules of how the multiverse and how okay, it's a big tree now. Like okay, so it's gonna be a big tree
Yeah.
now, then like actually be a big tree now. Like there'll be some rules and some consistency now, and that's good.
Instead of them just making it up as they go along and
Except
every
for
director
I
having
was
a
just
different
gonna say,
interpretation
except for every creative team creating their own interpretation of what they think the rules are.
because nobody has gone, no, no, that's not what this is the clear cut
Right? I
rules.
mean, it's not even just because Loki is the best thing they've made in a while, but also just because, yeah, having the same person have an eye, it's what made it successful early on. It's just I think Kevin Feige has kind of lost his way a little bit, but he got overly ambitious. Maybe one of the Disney executives like has been on his case or something, but like they've definitely like lost their way. And I'm one of those people who I don't want to be like, oh, the MCU is going to repair itself in the next year, but I do think that like they're learning the right lessons, and the stuff we're seeing now is the sort of the last of the wrong lesson, if that makes any sense.
I think they're also just they're doing the smart thing of listening to their fans, and the fans are like, we don't want 20,000 Netflix or Disney Plus shows that we have to go and do research on. We want to be able to like those are supplemental things that pad out the universe,
Yeah,
but I don't need to watch them to go and enjoy the movie.
exactly.
And I think
Yeah.
they're learning. I think they're learning that
Like
lesson, which
you
is
can
good.
the thing is they can make a really good show. Like the Netflix shows are really good for they exist in the universe but they don't touch the movies, but they exist in
Yeah,
but they
they don't
exist in the universe.
overpower.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. And that I think that's the key. It's like you can, and that's what makes comic books successful. Is like, yeah, we all understand that Superman and Batman exist in the same universe, but they don't need to like be fist bumping every single day. Or it's the same thing with like the
no,
Avengers and Spider-Man. We know they live in the same universe, but they don't need to be like teaming up every other week.
no, and that's what makes those editions where they do team up so big and so important is that they don't do it every day. So
Exactly.
like they had specific runs of the Batman Superman team up ones where they did team up, and that's what made those comic books special is they teamed up in those ones because they don't team up in the regular Batman and Superman ones.
Exactly. It like by being like everything needs to it diminishes it makes it less it makes the universe smaller is what the best way to put it I guess. Or at least it makes the universe feel
Um,
smaller because you're like, well, if you're like they should be running into each other. Well, obviously they're not going to run into each other all the time. It's a big
no,
universe.
not all the time. Like that's where you can very easily just have it, and this is where you and I think have said this before to like off screen, where like you can have something as simple as like someone. acknowledging or referencing another character.
That's enough.
The Hulk can be like, "Oh, Thor would say this," and that's enough. Like
Exactly.
that's acknowledging that they exist in this universe, being like, yes, they share space, but one does not need to be there all the time,
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, and again, you can have continuity and serialization exist, but yeah, but just simply acknowledging that the overall story is still happening. Like Rick and Morty recently, we've talked about this in the past, where Rick and Morty is doing a really good job of being like, oh, um, this is an individual episode, but yeah, we're still gonna make like reference to the big overall story that's happening. So then at least you know the characters are still aware of it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, because at the height of the whole Marvel multiverse thing, everyone and their dogs was trying to build a multiverse, and it's like, no, not everything needs to be connected in that way. You
Exactly.
can you can you can still have like separated stories,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that was part of the problem that Marvel faced is they opened Pandora's box and then quite suddenly didn't know how to get it all back in again,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's funny because everyone's always like, we need to get that, or how are we gonna build the same end game level hype? And I mean, you can't, you have to wait 10 years. Like I think Marvel played the long game, and I think they've kind of forgotten that. And DC's kind of
right?
realizing that maybe because they pulled over James Gunn, and he's a Marvel guy, and like they certainly realized that the best way to make these movies is to just make them Marvel movies. Like if they want them if they, I mean, you saw Blue Beetle, like,
I did.
that movie's
You're
just a
not
Marvel
wrong.
movie.
Yeah, yeah, you're very right.
They were just like, you know what?
Um,
That's how we're gonna get the critical people getting being like, it's fine. Like, if that's the best
what
we can hope for, it's fine. It's a fine movie. It's a little dark
now?
in the middle.
If we're gonna talk about James Gunn, I will say, uh, my pipe dream, my hope for the future that we might get one day, which is like a big ask, but I would love it, is if James Gunn can like be the bridge to allow us to have a Marvel versus DC crossover movie.
I mean, that would be fun. I think that's kind of the last, like, the genre's on its way out when they kind of finally do that. When there's enough cooperation, we're so desperate for people to watch these, we'll do this. I think you have a better chance of a video game existing, if I'm being honest. And there were
I,
talks about it. I know
yeah.
NetherRealm. I know rather NetherRealm was working on a Marvel game at one
Well,
point.
I mean, with them doing their crossovers between like DC and Mortal Kombat and stuff, it just and like the Injustice
Yeah.
games and stuff like that, it just feels like a game that they're pretty equipped to tackle.
Well, I've
Um,
always said that they should, because one of them I one thing I liked about the DLC characters is they all had a story, and that there was a reason for why they were there, and I like that. And it's the same thing in the Mortal Kombat characters. I think that if they do eventually do an Injustice 3, which they absolutely should, they should lean into that and make it about, rather than it still being DC, make it about the multiverse. I mean, yeah, multiverse stuff overplayed, whatever. I don't care. I still love it. But really lean into the idea of having it be like different characters are coming in from different universes, and like just lean into the guest characters, make it all guest characters, and then you
I
can
would
bring back your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all those characters and not have to worry about
I would
licensing,
love that. That would be dope.
right?
Oh,
Like that would
that'd
be
be a lot of
that
fun.
that, that that's kind of what the DLC kind of made it. Like, what are you gonna do otherwise for a third one? And I know they're working on it. I know they're working on it. Um,
Interesting.
I
I
know that
didn't I didn't know that.
I know that they were talking about they were talking about a Marvel thing. At one point, they were talking about a Marvel versus DC thing and how that would work. And you're right. I think with James Gunn, I think the doors are open for that kind of stuff now. But to be fair, actually, that is the last bit of news we'll do, which is we will talk about David Zaslav, the guy who's in charge of Warner Brothers, before we
Oh,
move on to the next segment.
right.
He basically he's came out and he was like, yeah, deleting one or Batwoman was the right thing to do, and it's like I saw someone who was like, oh, he's gone full cartoon villain now, which I would say it's disrespectful to cartoon villains, because at least cartoon villains will lose or learn a lesson at the end of the day. Like
Very true.
like he
No,
he keeps fucking up and he's not paying for it,
you can't keep getting away with it.
right? Like I mean, to be fair, I did think it was kind of interesting that they the Acme versus Acme
What, Wile E.
versus Wile E.
Coyote?
Coyote, thank you.
Wile.
That got canceled, and then everyone got pissed off at it. Same way they did with Batgirl. Same level of bad press, but yet you'll notice John Cena leads that movie, and he's of a certain gender and skin complexion. You notice his movie.
What?
You notice
No.
his
What?
movie was allowed to be shopped around to other people, but Batgirl, who had a lead with a different gender and skin color, was not. That sure seems like an odd coincidence,
I,
wouldn't you say?
I, I mean, I'm not gonna say one way or the other, but yes, yes, that's a
That
very odd
is a very
coincidence.
odd coincidence. Cause
That's
I'm just
and
saying,
that's and that's definitely all it is. It's just a
just
coincidence,
a
right?
coincidence,
We
right?
we we can't say that it's anything other than a
Just a weird
coincidence.
coincidence. Because
Just say, just say.
I'm telling you, if they put Batgirl in theaters, because it was supposed to originally go to streaming, but if they put it in theaters tomorrow, it would make like a bajillion dollars because a bunch of people would show up to watch it just in spite.
Just despite the
Just in
people that canceled
spite.
it. Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I mean. But they're afraid of that. They don't want that to happen. They don't want to be proven that the properties that they're trying to put out could be successful because I just think they want to shoot themselves in the foot.
It sure
I
seems
don't
that
know.
way. It sure seems
It
that
just
way.
kind of like didn't weren't they also the ones that deleted a bunch of properties
Yeah,
off of
yep.
off of various streaming services and stuff like that?
They erased um Final Space
Are
from
they?
existence. That was one of
Yeah, I
them.
was. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that
yeah,
so
yeah.
upsets me because that show's so good and it did not deserve that. And the fact that
No.
it gets a finale in a comic book, look, okay, good for him. I'm happy he gets to finish his story. Don't get me wrong, but also that feels like a travesty of justice. He should have got an animated final season or a movie or something.
Uh,
Like it's just like it feels like table scraps to be like, here's a comic book. That's what you get to do. Like, ugh,
yeah,
ugh.
I agree. I agree.
With
It's such
that,
a shame.
we wrap up the news section. And we're gonna move into our next section. But before we do, in the hopes that we eventually get sponsors, we're gonna throw in a little shout out in the middle here that this is not sponsored, but this is brought to you by the Arate Podcast Network. Without whom none of this would be possible. Without whom we wouldn't have had the courage or motivation to do so. I'd like to thank him for having us on his podcast, and this is my acceptance of his invitation to join his network. I hope he accepts me and my lovely co-host into the network. We're very excited to join it. It's going to be a good time. Okay, with that having been said, we're going to move on to the next segment I call Book Report. Now, what this is every week, every podcast, Jordan is going to bring in a thing, whether it be a movie, a television show, a video game, a book, what have you. It doesn't have to be a book. I know it's called Book Report, but it doesn't have to be a book. And he's going to tell me about it. Ideally, it's something he hasn't seen before, but maybe one week he's going to get creative and he's going to talk about something he loves. And then I'm going to talk about a thing that I haven't seen before. My book report, because I'm the host, I get to break the rules. Um, I want to talk about the last movie I watched, which is not what you think it is. But we're going to start off with every time we're going to start off. Jordan, what is your book report?
Uh, well, future book reports will probably be better than this one. This one's a little last minute, but I recently watched the two Doctor Who specials, the first and second one. I'm gonna compile them into one section here because there's enough meat there that I feel like we could get some good stuff. It was a lot of fun getting to watch the David Tennant and um,
Catherine Tate.
Don and yeah, thank you. I know the name. I was just blanking
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Catherine Tate. just slide right back into roles that they played like back in what 2012 was the last time they walked in these
Ah,
shoes.
I'm doing one of those moments where I don't, yeah, something like that. No,
They,
2012 feels too late. 2012 is before that, I think. But yeah, 2012 I think is,
point
but
being
yeah,
point being that it was many years ago,
yeah,
and they slide into these roles, and it's like putting on like a spare jacket or
yeah,
gloves or whatever metaphor you want to put on.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, it's just it's a joy.
yeah.
It warms the cold hard cockles of my
I
heart.
think it did a lot of
Uh,
people. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I want to love it," but there's that one thing about it I don't like, but I want to like it. And like I saw that a lot online of people think I want to like it, but I want to complain about that one thing that I don't like. Like that was a lot of it.
um, Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but I don't know. I mean, are there moments that where it's like, okay, yeah, I can feel certain modern sensibilities that are on this show, sure,
Okay.
but they don't bother me
No, don't
personally.
bother me.
Uh,
If you
I
follow me
love
for
that
long
they
enough, you
that
know it doesn't bother me.
by the way, anytime I talk about stuff, I will probably spoilers, spoilers galore. I'm not shying away from spoilers. I'm not going to pretend
It's been
that
out for a
there's no
few days.
spoilers.
If you haven't watched it yet, come back.
That's on you.
That's on you. I'm sorry.
Um,
It's on Disney Plus.
I'm 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 going to start with the first special, so that gives you time to not listen to the second special.
Exactly.
But the first special, uh like when I first watched it, it was essentially like playing the bingo card of, oh, what like 10th Doctor mannerisms or things are we gonna get? What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oi!
yeah.
Like, you know, stuff like that.
David Tennant, bingo. Yeah, yeah,
Allons-y!
yeah.
You know, like
Absolutely.
all the greatest hits.
Yeah,
Which I loved. I love that they did that. That's great. That's fantastic. Uh, I love the fact that like uh, uh, Donna Noble's daughter is named after Rose. Like that.
yeah. I love
That's
that.
I love that. They
Her chosen name is Rose. I love that touch. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The fact that she's a transgender person is definitely an interesting touch.
yeah.
It's one that I think works really well with the idea that Donna and the Doctor are like bi, like dual kind of things, and then she's the thing
Non-binary.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love the
I
non-binary.
thought that was really great. The way that they resolved the meta crisis of Donna Noble being like she passed down it, so now like it's split between the two.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I love that as well.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and then moving into the second special, unless you want to jump in on the first one
Well,
at
what I
all.
was gonna say about, and this is a question I'd have for any actor who's played a character for like 10, or who played a character for a long time, or it has been a while. Like, does that character, like, it's a question I had for the guys on Supernatural. If I ever had the chance to ask them a question, I'd be like, what's it like to have a character in your head for that long, and does it live in you for that long, and how easy is it to find that, like, for Catherine Tate, like, has Donna lived inside her for all these years, or did she have to find her again? Does it seem that way, right? Same with David Tennant and the
Yeah,
Doctor. But with him, he has that extra baggage that he can bring into this. So it's like, and the
yeah,
thing I respect about David Tennant, and I respected it about him in this one, is he seems to have done the research. Like, he genuinely seems like he has watched that, and it comes across in the performance. Like, in the performance, he has those memories of being those people, because David Tennant clearly watched it, or watched some of it in preparation for this. At least that's what it feels like to me.
yeah. Or like at the very minimum, he's received like a two-page document giving him all the high notes of everything that's happened,
Yeah, well,
so
I
that he
mean,
can at least be abreast of kind of where he had to be.
exactly. And he is a big
Um,
Doctor Who fan generally. I mean, he's a
oh,
fan.
I fully believe that he went and he watched those
I
seasons.
mean, it probably helps that he only had to do three specials, and we'll get to the second one, but he didn't like the. I mean, the first one was high energy, and I surmised the third one will also be high energy. But it's like that second one wasn't crazy high energy, and so he could throw everything into it, check out, and be like, "I did my thing. I don't have to do two series of this."
Yeah, fair enough.
He could just give it
Um,
everything, and then just be like, "I'm good. I did my thing. I'm happy. I'm content."
Um, as for your question about the slipping into the role, I would be fascinated to hear. Especially like you're right, David Tennant. It's a little easier because he's not technically the same person, right?
Exactly.
He is a different doctor, so he can play it a little bit differently, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same. But Catherine Tate, it is supposed to be that she is the same person, but she's also lived a very full life of having a child and a
Exactly.
husband and like a career and is supposed to be quite a bit older in the preceding years.
Hmm.
So she also is able to bring in those differences while she still feels like the same person. It's
Hmm.
acting is a fascinating
Well,
thing.
what's interesting and I noticed this especially in the second one. I mean, we'll get into the second one, but the thing I noticed with it was how her instincts were more maternal this time. Like she was very concerned with taking care of the doctor as a mom, which is different
Oh
with
yeah,
how she treated him before, which is like as a buddy. That's why she's my favorite
gay
companion. It's nice to have.
gay best friend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're
She used to treat him like
they're
a gay best friend.
they are so gay best friends. Like they're the gayest
Oh yeah.
of the bestest of friends. And I think that segues nice into you tell us about the second special.
So second special, it was still fun. My major issue with the second special is it didn't feel special. It felt more like a an episode of the show, which is
There.
not a bad thing.
We said it was
It's
a
a fantastic episode.
yes. Yes, it's a very good. We said this. It's a very good solo episode of the show. It's and I agreed with you. I agree with you. It
That's
it doesn't. It's not
it's just
60th
not
anniversary. It's not
special.
grand enough for me.
Yeah, yeah. So in the second special, they end up at this station, space station, like at the edge of the universe. They end up running and I what compliment sandwich as it were.
Hmm.
I really like in this episode special that sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. In the special, they go to this station and they end up running into these beings, which are slowly taking on their form, their shape, their memories. These beings that exist from outside of the universe. And what I really like about the episode is that the episode, other than the very end, really only has Catherine Tate and David Tennant playing multiple so
Yeah.
each is playing two versions of themselves basically,
Yeah.
the alien and their own version, and so it just really speaks to their talent that they feel like they don't feel like the same. They feel like they're like different versions,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that
And it's so good as the not beings or whatever they're called as they become them. Yeah, they do become more like them, and the performance changes. And it really is impressive. I watched a behind the scenes on how they did it, and it's remarkable. It's like they had to do this scene like 5 times. So it was like once as themselves, once with stand-ins there, playing once as themselves, and then the evil versions of them being played by stand-ins, and then they swap. And so the stand-ins had to learn
oh
both
wow.
sides of both of the scene as well as them. Yeah, it was this multi-layered, like incredibly complex thing. But like certain, like the
um
thing I learned was the big hands. Those weren't CGI.
oh really?
Yeah. At least from what it looks like in behind the scenes, it looked like they were legit. Like they're actually like models and stuff.
Practical
Yeah.
models. Oh, that's why it looks so good then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
What I
Interesting.
kind of noticed about
um
so you continue, sorry.
I was gonna say, so what we had discussed off stream, and what I kind of tend to agree with is the way that I would have, because I as I said, I didn't feel it was special enough.
Yeah.
It didn't, and so I had
Well, except for
said
except
that
for one moment at the end, I will say that one moment, which we'll talk about, but that one moment at
we'll
the
we'll get
end, that one moment at the end,
we'll
I think
get
does.
there. But the issue that I kind of had with it with this see, there's the issue. I keep wanting to call it an episode
Yeah,
because
fair
it didn't
enough.
feel like a special. I would have what I would have done is I would have had it where um in some way or another the antagonist of the third one shows up in this one and is like escapes or whatever what have you.
Hmm.
There is something in this one which leads into the next one, but the way that it currently stands, you could not watch this one and watch the first one, watch the last one, and
Yeah.
not watch this one and completely take it out. And for a 60th anniversary kind of special, I don't think that's a good thing,
Yeah, I mean,
personally.
I mean, unless the idea is supposed to be like, oh yeah, it's like a supposed to emulate a old school Dr. Donna adventure, but it's like if this is supposed to be 68th anniversary of Doctor Who, then it just felt like that. But I mean, to be fair, the first one was jam packed, and it looks like the third one is also going to be jam packed. And I will say, the more quiet elements of this did allow for the moment at the end where friggin'
Wilf.
Wilfred Mott shows up,
Oh, oh,
and
my boy
he,
Wilf?
it's my boy Wilf. I
He's
stand
my
by it.
boy!
You're my boy Wilf. He, I stand by it. That man has the saddest eyes in fiction. Like he
Oh,
just looks at you and you're like, I
I,
just want. It's
I
enough to
just,
make a grown man cry. Not this
I
grown
just,
man, but
I just want to hold you and protect you from the world, dear Wilf. Oh,
right. And it's
oh,
so much
buddy.
more emotional when you remember that that was his final thing he ever shot. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it for him, and I think that's him, his character, and him getting to do that. Like, yeah, it's like, yeah, these specials are a little like we're playing the hits, and it's fan service, and it's. But look, man, that's what this should be. Like, let's and I will say there's a lot of creative and interesting stuff happening in the second special, and it's like, yeah, man, that where they're being chased down the hallway by the giant versions of themselves. That was kind of freaky. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah,
was kind
yeah.
of horror. Or when he
Yeah.
talks out his butt, like that was upsetting. That was bad.
The
Yeah,
bot, the like he twists, and he does
yeah.
like an exorcist, like
Yeah, there
kind
was some
of like,
Cronenbergian body horror in there that was pretty good, and it was
yeah,
creative. And it like the thing about Russell T Davies is obviously he brought Doctor Who back, and modern Doctor Who is very early to mid late 2000s, and it's cheap, and he learned how to do a lot with a little, um, and so he's doing a lot with a little with a lot. If that makes any sense,
yeah,
where it's like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's using the effects and the sparingly, and in a way that's spectacular and interesting looking, and he seems to be mixing it with uh
With a budget.
yeah, and this, I mean, to be fair, this really is like classic Russell T Davies New Who, where it's like it's the Doctor, he goes to a space location and has to fight a space thing. Like the like classic New Who comes in the kind of like two flavors. It's either there that he goes to space or another planet, and there's human looking aliens he has to help on another planet, or it happens in Cardiff. Like that's sort of the two locations Doctor the newer seasons have maybe occasionally happened in America, but for the most part, it's those with Russell T Davies. It's those two locations. So that's what this felt like.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a return to form, and that's where I want to stress it was good. I
Oh
liked it. It
yeah,
was a good.
yeah.
It was a good episode. It's just I don't know that it quite hit the level of special.
It was one of those moments where they had to come out and people were over speculating. They were over like they were like it's. I mean, we talked. You're gonna have Peter Capaldi and this person and that person, and the director had to come up and be like, no, there's no special. And that's probably their fault for the way they marketed it. They didn't show any of it in any of the trailers, which kind of made people. And they were like, oh, it's the one that's inside, because they were like, they announced David Tennant early because they were going to be filming on the street, and they were like they're going to see him as Doctor Who, so we
Yeah,
need to deal with this early. Same with Bernard Cribbins and Catherine Tate. They're like they're going to see him filming outdoors, so we have to get ahead of this. Otherwise
yeah,
the internet's going to ruin it. So they had to ruin it for that. So it was like, oh, that one's entirely indoors. So it's possible that they got Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi indoors where no one could see them and shot them on a green screen and had them walk out with, so no one could figure
yeah.
out they were there. So it was always
Secret
possible.
Secret Service them away.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, and to be fair, that still could happen.
Oh, it
Um,
could in the third one. Yeah, it could.
but this getting weird makes me hopeful that we're gonna see some weird shit in the next, because they're like 2 series ahead. They've already filmed. This is like the first time in Doctor Who history, modern Who certainly, where they filmed 2 series already. He went back
Interesting.
for the second one. Yeah, I guess maybe that's why they took a year off. I always thought it was weird that they took a year off, but maybe that's why.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I'm definitely
so
excited.
I'm
I'm definitely excited.
definitely Yeah, I was gonna say I'm definitely excited for the third one, and that's my book report.
Yeah, for me, before we move on to my book report, um, uh, as much I love David Tennant and I'm very happy to see him back, but this is enough for me. I don't need more. I don't need him to I don't think I needed him to have come back for a full series. I'm satisfied with what we're
Yeah,
getting, and I'm excited for the next guy. Like this is kind of
that's
the
fair.
first
I
time
mean,
I'm legit excited for the next guy.
I will agree. It is nice that he's not overstaying his
Yeah,
welcome.
I think so. Yeah,
Considering considering as Capaldi has stated, like once a doctor leaves, he's supposed to leave. So the fact that they're playing it up like it's weird that he's back,
yeah,
and they're playing that up and they're making that into a thing, I appreciate because yeah, it means that he can leave
exactly,
before he's like there too long.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Um, Now, for my book report, I'm going to break the rules immediately because I didn't see anything I hadn't already seen this week. Next week I will have an actual thing I haven't seen before, and I guarantee you Jordan will not have seen it. That's also part of this. I'd like him to pick something that I also haven't seen, so he's genuinely educating me, and I learn a thing as well, and I learn a new thing to go out and watch. Hopefully, you take away something you haven't seen from the book reports and you go out and you watch them. That's the hope. So, my book report is going to be about the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, which was the last movie I watched. I watched it yesterday. And generally, I like to talk about the Looney Tunes and their placement in sort of the history of film, television,
A-
media, um,
Animation.
because it's so interesting to me how the old that movie in particular is dated. Like it's weird. Like there's a lot of really dated humor in there that you're like, man, I'm sure this pop culture reference was topical in 1940. um, and it's so wild how like I don't know if you've seen clips uh from the new show where it's like, oh, it's the Looney Tunes by way of Ren and Stimpy, where they're just like it's weird and disturbing and upsetting,
Yeah.
and it's like I understand why a person who grossly who misremembers Looney Tunes might do that, but because like at one point like Bugs Bunny eats a gun and it's really weird. It's a really weird image where you're like, this is strange and odd, and there's a lot of weird like turns of phrases where it's like I don't think people say that anymore. It's very but growing up with it, I never felt that. It did and with a lot of media I find it didn't feel old even though it was old when we were young and we're old.
Yeah, it's weird how, as through the lens of a child, media can be seem very different. Like I remember liking Ren and Stimpy when we were younger. I remember like enjoying
Yeah.
that and shows like that were like that, like the Ripping Friends and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And as an adult, I go back and I watch some of this stuff, and or like Mega Babies is another example of one like that.
Yeah.
And that's one that we still quote to this day. We
Yes it
quote
is.
some lines from it. But I go back and I watch stuff from those shows now, and I'm like, this is weird. This
Right?
is weird
Weird
humor,
and
and the
gross
fact that
and
the fact that I thought that as a child I thought this was funny really shows you how strange children's humor is. So
right?
absolutely, I know exactly what you mean.
And to be fair, with Ren and Stimpy in particular, that eventually went to Spike TV for some reason. They tried to do an adult version of it, which still leads to my favorite joke in a thing I've ever, and it's certainly in Ren and Stimpy, because it was a horrible pun, but it's a very funny pun, and I'm gonna say it now. So for whatever reason, there are children watching this. Earmuffs, okay? Okay, you got the earmuffs on? Okay, so it's Ren. Ren's got a like he's got a strap on saw, and he's sawing, and Stimpy is wearing like a log on his butt, and he's like sawing it, and, like thrusting him from behind, and it's
I know exactly the.
saw to me, get it, get it,
Uh,
get it. It's a dumb joke, but it makes me laugh. Certainly,
it's a
it made me laugh. It made me laugh when I was like 18 and was edgy. But it's so
It's a
funny.
bad joke.
Tying back to the John Cena movie, I'm so sad that I really hope that they shop that out and we get to see it because they've never managed to find a modern identity for the Looney Tunes that I think works because I know that people love the Looney Tunes show and they love the domestication of Bugs Bunny, and I've seen isolated clips from that show that I think are funny. But overall, I don't know. There's something about them being domesticated that robs them of that robs them of their
Looney?
spirit. Yeah, the loony spirit that they're supposed to have. It's like, oh, Donald Duck and or not Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny pay rent. That's not what they do.
Yeah,
It just didn't
no.
feel right.
My issue with that show, because you're right, I've seen individual clips which are funny, um, and like it's not inherently a bad show, um, but my issue with it is, and I don't know how to word this exactly. The Looney Tunes are not the Muppets. The
No.
Looney Tunes are not they are not a cast of like because the point of the Muppets is that like yeah they do these movies and stuff, but they themselves are people that are acting.
Yeah,
The Looney
exactly.
Tunes were never like that. They became like that with movies like Space Jam or
See,
Back in Action or even Who Framed Roger Rabbit. They became characters that were acting, but the original inception of them was not that they were like that. They were people that
yeah.
existed in a world that was loony.
Well, to be fair though, to be fair, the character of Bugs Bunny in the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie is that he's an actor and he's done several pictures and these are all the people he's worked with over the years and there's this really weird sort of meta introduction where there's way more of them than I remembered, but where Bugs Bunny goes through all of his various fathers and apparently he leaves one out. I don't remember the guy's name, but he leaves one out because there was him and Chuck Jones, the director of the movie, were going through like a feud or whatever. They were having a famous feud, and there's apparently another one of these movies that's very similar, where it has a similar introduction, where he says a bunch of additional fathers, and he still leaves out that guy, and it was a big deal as well. I can't remember what the guy's name is,
Interesting.
but the
But
Bugs
my
Bunny Roadrunner movie is that's funny because that's basically a compilation of all of Chuck Jones' most famous, and it tries to have a narrative through line, and it doesn't. There's a point like the last like I think 20 minutes of it are like 20 or like no maybe less than that 10 or so Roadrunner cartoons that are all stitched together into like a Frankenstein vignette that goes on for like 20 minutes. I didn't finish it. I stopped at the part. I was like I remember this well enough by memory, but to make the video I was gonna make. But I stopped at the part where it was the opera, which I find funny now as an adult, but as a kid I remember being the most boring part of the movie. It's like oh it's the part where they're singing opera. It's like the Barber of Seville. The Barber of Seville I think is a funny Looney Tunes sketch now, but like no that's the one where it's him. He's on Elmer
yeah,
Fudd's
he's
head.
massaging Elmer Fudd's head.
Um, I think that one's funny now, but as a kid, if it didn't have dialogue in it, to me, Bugs Bunny he's always been funniest when he's vocal. That's what makes him funny to me. Is his quick wit.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. My issue, the point that I was trying to not issue, point that I was trying to make about that other cartoon though is that it is essentially like if you took those framing device scenes of like where they are actors and stuff and made it into its own show.
Yeah,
Because like in these cartoons that the regular Looney, the ones that we grew up with, yeah, they were loony.
yeah,
Like they
yeah,
weren't. It wasn't about them going to the bank to get money for groceries and stuff that I do every day. No, they were loony. They're doing
yeah.
crazy
They
things.
don't exist in the real world. That's the whole point. So they'd be like, oh,
No,
here's the guys that don't exist in the real world, but they exist in the real world. It just didn't. I mean, to be fair, maybe I found like as I've gotten older, stuff like that. But on a reapproach, I'm like, oh maybe, and I'm like maybe if I sat down and actually watched it today, maybe I'd be like, oh my god, I was totally wrong about this show. But yeah, at the
maybe.
time, it just didn't do anything for me. I was like, nah, it just doesn't do anything.
No,
Um,
doesn't really for me either.
and it's funny because I remember that with the Bugs Bunny, with those Looney Tune movies, I remember being not realizing that they were just compilations as a kid, and then seeing the TV show version and being like, why is this longer? Like I have no idea, but it's just concept that they like the Robin Hood one, the actual short is like I think a few minutes longer. Same with I think Duck Amuck. They cut Duck Amuck early, I
Duck,
think.
Duckamaki will always be one of my favorite ones.
Duck Amuck is one of my favorite. There's a really good, um, which I owned, and I think I've since lost it, but it was a DS game.
The game.
There's a DS game
Yeah,
called
yeah, yeah,
Duck
yeah,
Amuck.
yeah, yeah.
That's really fun, and I would love to see them bring it back. I would love to see them bring back that game and put it on the Switch because I think it would be really fun on the Switch.
Oh, that'd be a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
with the stylus and yeah, it would be so fun on the Switch. And that game was so creative and yeah, it literally was. You were playing that card and they added a bunch of extra and all it was you just opened up the game and he was just there and he was pissed off. And yeah, you had to like unlock the various like scenarios and stuff by figuring out what to do to him. And there was ones that were like from the original and then there was ones that were different. It was really fun. And it's really underrated and there's a lot of really good Looney Tunes games that I love, like the Taz and Bugs in Time one. That one's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. I remember one where it was a side scroller, I think, and it was the supposed to be based around the cartoon where Bugs was in. Maybe I'm remembering. No, I think this was a level in the Taz game, the 2D Taz game, where you end up in space where Marvin the Martian stuff is.
Yeah, no, that was a different one. That was the Sega Genesis Taz game. That was one of the levels in
Was
that one.
that okay? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but there was a couple. There was one where it was like you wound up in Spain and you had to fight the bull. There's a bunch of different ones that were based on different. All the levels were based off of different
Different
cartoons.
cartoons.
Yeah, yeah, it was very fun. I remember that game was super fun. We had it for PC. And then there's another really fun. The Looney Tunes have so many underrated games that not enough people have played. But another really good one was um, Sheep Raider. Sheep Raider was really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that
That it's
one.
really funny when I was trying to read about um, Wile E. Coyote because the idea to watch the Bugs Bunny Road cartoon came from discovering that in that movie there's a cartoon where Bugs Bunny first meets Wile E. Coyote and he's a well-spoken, articulate British man, and at least that's his voice. It's still
Why, why Lee Coyote? Super
super genius. I
genius.
watched the compilation. That's literally how he introduces himself in every one of the. Okay, so I always thought it was just the one. I always thought it was just the one cartoon where Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote. But no, there's like six of them. There's a bunch of them, and yeah, he always introduces. It always kind of ends the same way, where he's like, "Hi, my name is Wile E. Coyote, and my name is Mud." Like how that one ends. They all end sort of.
Rem- and and remember, mud spelled backwards
Is
is dumb.
dumb. Um, but yeah, so when I was reading, doing my research, figuring out how often does he talk? Turns out more often than you think. Um, one of the comments I saw was, yeah, of course he talks. He talks to the sheepdog, and it's like, no, no, that's not Wile E. Coyote. That's Ralph. That's Ralph the Coyote.
That's Ralph.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's
That,
different.
that's
Sorry, I was gonna say he's different. I looked him up. He's different because they wanted to do those cartoons with the sheepdog, and they wanted a coyote character. He was originally gonna be Wile E. Coyote, and then they like one of the I think it might have been Chuck Jones changed it, and that's when he got the red nose and he became a
the
different
red
character.
nose. Yeah,
Yeah, that's how you can tell them apart. And like they're not canonically. I looked it up because I thought it was that they were cousins, but no, there's no relation. It's just people assume they're related. And I think Ralph is a
oh,
wolf. I don't think he's a coyote. I think he's a wolf. I'm pretty sure.
interesting.
Yeah, he's not actually a coyote, so that's why they're cousins, technically, canonically.
I mean, that would make sense for the game too, because one of the things that I remember that you can get is an outfit which makes it that so that you look like a sheep, and he's a
Yeah,
wolf in sheep's clothing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That game was so fun. I think I remember beating that game in like an afternoon. Like it wasn't very long and it wasn't very hard because we were kids when we
I
played it.
remember it being a pretty simple game.
Yeah.
Basically, hide from the sheep
God,
or
there's
hide
so
from the
many of
dog,
those
rather.
old shovelware PlayStation 1 games that I wish they would just put out. Like I get that the licensing is tough, but I just wish they would put out because I would love to play Sheep Raider again. That game was so fun.
That would be fun.
I mean, I remember that Taz game, and it's funny because there's a code that lets you just float through the levels. Like it lets you turn into it must be like a debug mode cheat or something because it just lets Taz float through the levels, and that's how we know that that level exists because we never actually beat it. We never beat the game long enough to get there. We just skipped all the way to the end of the game using that code. And then it's funny because I was like I can never I did it once and I can never figure out how to make it work again. But I know it exists. That's how I know the rest of it. It's the same thing with
Casper.
Casper, or I was gonna say the Lion King game, where no one's ever actually beaten that. They just learned what the level skip code was and skipped past the hard level.
Yeah, because the one level is basically
It is
impossible.
impossible. It's designed to be basically impossible.
The just can't wait to be king level.
Yeah, that's specifically designed to yeah, it's specifically
Cause
designed to be
yeah,
impossible.
because they had to make it for like game rentals and stuff, so that you couldn't just beat it in an afternoon.
Yeah, that's why all Sega Genesis games are hard because because of video game rentals,
Which is funny. It's such a dated thing.
right? But I think with that, that's gonna wrap up my book report. So yeah, that was my book report, and it got weird and complicated. But I've been trying to think of a way as we've been talking here how to end this, how to wrap up the spur of the moment podcast, the first episode, the pilot experience, and I think it's the way I'm going to end every show, and I'm going to ask you guys, the audience, to go out and do a book report, watch a thing, read a thing, play a thing. It doesn't have to be a movie. It could be a show. It could be whatever. Experience a new piece of media. Let me know what it is in the comments and tell me something about it. Recommend something to me that maybe I haven't seen. Recommend something to Jordan that he can check out for his book report next
Yeah,
time. And hopefully the book report will be something different next time. But regardless, thank you for whoever has tuned into this, who has watched the full thing. Like I said, the future ones are going to be live, so you can tune in. You can come hang out with us. You can come chat with us. You can give us your book reports live, and you can chat with us about the news. That's going to open every show. And yeah, I hope that people tune in to this. This is going to be fun. We're going to have fun. You're going to have fun. It's going to be a good time. Now, I don't know how to end this. Okay. This is gonna get really awkward as I attempt to end this recording. Okay, here we go.